Right now, you are warm and you didn't even have to try. The heat just runs. There's a coat by your door you never had to kill anything to make. And when the sun goes down tonight, the dark will mean almost nothing to you. You'll flip a switch and erase it. Now take all of that away. Strip it down to your bare skin, a fire that could die at any moment, and a night so cold it could kill you in your sleep before you ever woke up. Outside, a wall of ice a kilometer thick, temperatures dropping past -40, 16 hours of darkness, and somewhere out in that dark, animals that saw you as meat. That was not one bad night. That was every night, for hundreds of thousands of years. And here is the strange part. Your ancestors didn't just survive those nights, they did something with them. By the end of this, you'll understand why some scientists believe the Ice Age night is where humans actually became human. 20,000 years ago, at the coldest point of the last Ice Age, the Earth looked like another planet. Glaciers buried entire continents. The land was flat, frozen, and open, with nothing to stop the wind. And when the sun went down, the temperature didn't just drop, it fell off a cliff. Understand what our bodies are. We come from warm places. We have no thick fur, no seal's fat layer, no bear's ability to slow the heart and sleep the winter off. Take the clothes off a modern human in real Ice Age cold, and they have hours, not days. On paper, we were one of the first things that should have died out there in the dark. We didn't. And to see why, you have to stop picturing what everyone pictures, a few shivering people hunched around a tiny flame in a cave. That image is almost completely wrong. What was actually happening after dark was closer to engineering. Most Ice Age people didn't wait out the night in whatever cave they stumbled into. A great many of them built. Out on the frozen plains of what is now Ukraine and Russia, there were no caves and barely any wood. So they used the one thing lying around everywhere: mammoth bones. At a site called Mezrich, archaeologists found round houses made almost entirely of mammoth bones and tusks. Skulls, each over 200 pounds, set into the ground as foundation blocks. Curved tusks bent overhead into a dome. Hundreds of bones in a single house, packed with hide, moss, and earth. The biggest is around 18,000 years old, built in the deepest cold of the Ice Age, and the site was used again and again across generations. Some of the oldest architecture on Earth, and people made it out of giants. And the design was smarter than it looks in the dark. Many of these winter homes had a cold trap doorway, with the entrance dug lower than the sleeping area. Cold air is heavy, so it sank into the entrance and stayed there, while warm air rose to where the family slept. They worked that out tens of thousands of years before anyone wrote down how it works. They packed snow into thick insulating walls. Long before the igloo, they already knew that under a snowbank was far warmer than the open air above it. They even solved the silent killer of every warm enclosed space: moisture. Breathing and bodies fill a shelter with water vapor that freezes inside the walls and destroys them. So they built small vents low to pull cold air in, and larger ones up high to let the wet, warm air escape. A passive ventilation system, inside a bone house, in the dark, in the Ice Age. Nothing worked without fire, so that is where every night began. By the Ice Age, humans had been using fire for hundreds of thousands of years, and they were extraordinary at it. In Ukraine, researchers digging up Ice Age hearths expected rough little fires. Instead, they found carefully built fireplaces, one that had burned at over 600 degrees Celsius. When wood ran short on the open plains, they burned fat and bone instead. An analysis of the ashes shows the fuel was prepared for specific heat, not just thrown on. But fire at night did far more than warm the air. It cooked food, which unlocked far more usable calories from the same meat. Some scientists argue that cooking is a large part of why the human brain grew so big. It hardened wooden spear tips into weapons. It dried wet clothing, which in that cold was the razor's edge between comfort and death. And it kept the predators back, because the night belonged to monsters. Cave lions bigger than any lion alive today. Giant hyenas that cracked bone in one bite. Packs of wolves crossing the frozen plains. In the Ice Age, humans were not the apex predator after dark. Humans were prey. A roaring fire was your only reliable bodyguard, and the person whose job was to keep it alive may have been more important than the strongest hunter in the group. If the fire went out in a blizzard with no way to restart it, that wasn't an inconvenience. It could erase an entire bloodline by morning. Fire has one flaw: step away from it, and the cold is right there waiting. So humans did something no other animal could. They took the warmth off other animals and put it on themselves. It started simply, with hides thrown over the shoulders. But a loose skin leaks heat through every gap. The real fix arrived around 30,000 years ago, and sounds almost too small to matter. The sewing needle. A sliver of bone or ivory with a tiny hole drilled through it, some barely a millimeter wide, so finely made that modern researchers using period tools struggle to copy them. One scientist called it maybe the most important invention in human history, and he has a point. A blanket on your shoulders and a fitted coat that seals at the wrist are two entirely different things, and the needle is what turned one into the other. From the Sungir burial in Russia, around 34,000 years old, we can almost see the result. Two children buried in garments sewn with thousands of individually carved ivory beads, reconstructed into a layered system, a close inner layer against the skin, an insulating middle layer, a tough wind and water outer layer, with hoods, trousers and boots. That is almost exactly the layering a modern mountaineering guide would recommend. They arrived at it through pure trial and error. The ones who got it wrong died in the dark, and the ones who got it right passed the knowledge on. Here is the part almost nobody knows. For most of human history, people did not sleep the way you do. Not 8 hours straight. They slept in two phases, roughly 4 hours, then a waking period of 1 to 2 hours, then 4 more until dawn. This wasn't insomnia. It was the default human sleep pattern, recorded across dozens of historical cultures and confirmed in a 1992 experiment, where modern volunteers, kept away from artificial light for a month, drifted right back into the same two-phase rhythm. So picture that waking hour. The middle of the night. The storm outside is irrelevant now. The fire is lit, the bone house holds its heat, the family is packed close, because body heat is a real furnace when enough people share one roof. And in that warm hour, in the dark, the group is awake together. What did they do? The anthropologist Polly Weisner spent years studying one of the lost communities on Earth, still living close to the original human pattern, and what she found is striking. In daylight, about 80% of conversation was practical: logistics, hunting, resources, who did what. But at night, around the fire, that number flipped. 81% of nighttime talk was stories. That is what ancient humans did at night. They told stories. And it was not entertainment, it was survival. Stories warned children away from thin ice and frozen lakes. Stories carried migration routes, and the behavior of predators, and the memory of the terrible winter 15 years ago, and which valley still had deer when everywhere else was empty. The old woman by the fire, who knew every plant within 100 kilometers, was not a burden on the group. She was a library. The campfire was the first classroom, the first theater, the first place knowledge outlived the person who held it. Stories let information survive longer than any single memory, and that changed everything. It goes further. Many of the carved figurines and cave paintings that define our species were made in winter, in shelter, by firelight, during the long dark months of confinement. The art that made us human wasn't born in the summer sun, it was born in the Ice Age night. Here is the strangest part of all. You may still be carrying the Ice Age night inside you right now. Firelight calms the human nervous system. Sit by a flame tonight and watch your body settle. Darkness sharpens alertness and raises your guard. Isolation lifts your stress hormones. Your fear of the dark, your pull toward fire, the unease of being alone at night. Researchers who study this believe these are not random quirks. They are survival instincts, tuned over tens of thousands of nights, when the dark genuinely wanted you dead. Your body remembers the Ice Age, even when your mind has no idea. And in only a few thousand years, nothing. On this timeline, we went from stacking mammoth bones into a house against the dark to tapping a button for heat and erasing night with a switch. We beat the Ice Age night so completely that most people forgot it was ever a war we were losing. So the next time the sun goes down, and you don't even notice, remember what that darkness used to mean. Remember the family packed into a bone house, awake in the small hours, feeding a fire, and passing down a story so that their children might live to see spring. That is what ancient humans did at night. And the truth is, if you had lived back then, you would have done exactly the same, because you are the proof that they made it. Every one of them survived the night long enough to pass life down to you.